Hello, dear colleagues, and welcome back to BIM and AI in Practice, your trusted resource for mastering Autodesk Revit with clarity, confidence, and practical efficiency. We're thrilled to have you join us for another session in our Revit 2025 tutorial series. In this episode, we'll continue our exploration of the Annotate tab, beginning with a discussion of detail components and line-based detail component. Use detail components to enhance model geometry, providing construction details or other information. Detail components are Revit families that can be placed in drafting views or detail views to add information to the model. They offer a faster method of detailing than drawing individual detail lines. Let's take a closer look at detail components in Revit. Detail components are line-based, two-dimensional elements that you can place in detail views or drafting views. Unlike model elements, they exist solely within these specific views and are not visible elsewhere in the project. Importantly, they scale relative to the model, not the sheet, ensuring consistency in your visual representation across different viewports. These components are not physically associated with the model geometry. Instead, they serve to enhance documentation by providing essential construction details, annotations, or material representations tailored to particular views. For instance, in section views, you can use detail components to depict materials like wood studs, concrete layers, or metal panel assemblies. A common example is line-based detail components, especially helpful when illustrating linear materials such as batt insulation. You also have tagging options when documenting detail components in BIM. These components can be annotated using either detail item tags or keynotes, depending on your workflow needs. Detail item tags are used to directly identify and label individual elements, such as steel angles, bolts, or insulation, within detail views. For the identification of universal beams, the type mark parameter should be used. Utilizing type mark in detail item tags ensures clarity and consistency across documentation. The mark parameter should be reserved only for cases where individual instances require unique identification. Keynotes, on the other hand, reference a keynote legend or specification section, avoiding repetitive notes. This improves clarity and consistency, particularly during construction administration and coordination phases. In the upcoming episode of BIM and AI in Practice, we will explore legends and legend components in detail. Additionally, if you have any questions regarding tags or keynotes, you are encouraged to share them in the comments section. Before placing detail components, ensure that the appropriate detail component families are loaded into your project. These families can be accessed from the Revit Family Library. If the required detail component is not available in your current Revit library, you can load it from an external source. You may download Revit Family's RFA files from reputable websites or use files provided directly by manufacturers. Once downloaded, load these files into your project via Insert. Load Family. Then place them using the Detail Component tool. Before using any external content, ensure it aligns with your project standards. This includes category assignment, units, level of detail, line weights, materials, and naming conventions. Detail components bridge the gap between model-based design and construction-level detailing, making them essential for users aiming to elevate their Revit workflow. To insert a detail component in Revit, follow these steps. First, navigate to the Annotate tab on the ribbon. From there, open the Component drop-down menu and select Detail Component. Next, use the Type selector in the Properties palette to choose the appropriate detail component family for your task. Click to place the component in your detail view. While Revit provides a substantial library of pre-designed detail components, such as metal profiles and masonry joints, these should be considered as general representations. For construction-accurate detailing, including precise profile sections and exact dimensional specifications, it is essential to reference technical documentation supplied by material manufacturers and product vendors. The same items can also be found in the project browser, under Families. Detail items. From here, just select the desired one and drag it into the drawing area. Click in the drawing area to place the detail component. If the desired component isn't listed, you may need to load it into your project from the Revit Family Library. When loading families into a project, Revit accesses its default family library. However, if your office uses a custom content library stored in a different location, your system may automatically reference that instead. For details or assistance, please contact your CAD manager. As you place the detail component, press the spacebar to rotate it. This allows you to cycle through available snap points, aligning the component precisely with surrounding elements for improved graphic consistency. If further adjustment is needed, use the Rotate After Placement feature to fine-tune its orientation post-insertion. If the Revit library doesn't include the detail component you need, you can create a custom detail component family to suit your project requirements. Before proceeding, it's a good idea to familiarize yourself with family creation concepts. You can find a dedicated walkthrough in our other videos on Revit families. In most cases, the families you'll create are loadable families. These include standardized configurations of commonly used architectural components or annotation symbols. Examples include custom fasteners, insulation patterns, or specialty hardware. Let's walk through a general procedure for creating a custom detail component family in Revit. In this example, we'll create a flooring detail. While the process may vary slightly depending on your design intent, these core steps remain widely applicable across various detail types. To create a custom detail component, you can either modify an existing family or start from scratch. To modify an existing family, click on it and select Edit Family. Here are two key benefits. Time efficiency. Modifying an existing family saves time by building on pre-existing geometry and parameters. Consistency. It ensures your custom details align with the project standards, maintaining compatibility with other components. If you're starting from scratch, go to File, New, Family, and you will be prompted to select a template. Revit offers a range of family templates, each defining the appropriate context for your component, whether it's line-based, face-based, or reference-level-based. These templates ensure that your family is fully compatible with Revit's environment. From the available options, select the Metric Detail Item template to start building your 2D detail component. When working in a country or region that uses the metric system, such as Europe, parts of Asia, or Australia, the Metric Detail Item template ensures that the units for any detail components you create, such as line weights, dimensions, and annotations, are based on the metric system, for example, millimeters, centimeters, or meters, rather than imperial units, for instance, inches or feet. First, go to the Create tab and sketch out reference planes. These act as control lines that guide the placement and alignment of your geometry. Think of them as a structural framework that anchors the shape, proportions, and parametric behavior of your detail component, ensuring precision and consistency throughout the design process. Second, add dimensions to the family. This step is essential for controlling and constraining the geometry, enabling the component to respond predictably to changes. By assigning dimensions, you ensure consistent sizing and allow for parametric flexibility, which is especially useful when the detail needs to adapt to different design conditions. Temporary dimensions appear when you select an element and are used to show distances to nearby references, such as walls, grids, or other elements. If you'd like to convert temporary dimensions into permanent ones, click the dimension icon. Look for a small blue icon, a small dimension symbol, next to the temporary dimension. Click it to convert the temporary dimension into a permanent one. Next, begin defining the shape of the component using Revit's 2D drafting tools. Since detail components are purely symbolic and not represented in 3D, use the Filled Region tool to sketch the graphical representation. In our example, this includes applying a standard wood hatch pattern to illustrate the flooring material. As you draw, be sure to lock the edges of the filled region to the reference planes. This ensures that the geometry will scale correctly when the family is flexed and remain parametrically constrained, preserving the integrity of your detail layout. Use the Align tool, AL shortcut, to align each edge of the filled region with the appropriate reference plane. Once an edge snaps into alignment, a lock icon will appear. Click this icon to constrain the edge. This step is essential to ensure the filled region maintains its relationship to the reference framework as parameters change. Next, if your component includes line work or additional filled regions, select those elements and click Visibility Settings. This will allow you to define the visibility of your objects at different levels of detail: coarse, medium, or fine. By setting visibility appropriately, you ensure that your detail component displays correctly across various view types, helping maintain clarity and consistency throughout your project documentation. Once the family is complete, save it as RFA, Revit Family File, and load it into any Revit project where it's needed. Keep in mind that the time required to build a family varies depending on its complexity. To streamline the process, you can often duplicate and adapt an existing family. This approach minimizes repetitive work and promotes standardization across your project deliverables. If you've encountered scenarios where leveraging existing families significantly improved your workflow, feel free to share your experience in the comments below. Revit also allows you to create a 2D line-based detail component family, which can be especially useful for representing continuous materials such as insulation, cladding, or sheathing. With this type of family, you place the detail by selecting a start and end point along a line. For example, if you're adding a plywood fill pattern in a section view, selecting the 2 points places the component with the thickness and fill pattern defined in the family. Let's say the plywood was drawn at 20 mm thickness in the 2D detail component. When you place the component along a section line, it will render the plywood at that exact thickness, stretching only in length based on your input. If you need to adjust the thickness, you'll first need to edit the 2D detail component family and modify its geometry or parameters accordingly. As always, your exact workflow may vary depending on the specific design intent and project requirements. First, create a new family using the Metric Detail Item Line-based template. This template is specifically designed for components that need to stretch along a defined path, ideal for materials like insulation, trim, or in this case, our plywood detail. Second, navigate to the Create tab and use Revit's 2D drafting tools to define the shape of the detail component. Use the Line or Filled Region tools to sketch the graphic representation. Be sure to draw the geometry between the 2 reference planes. This setup allows the component to expand or contract parametrically based on the length specified during placement in the project environment. The material thickness should be specified with precision. For example, the wood flooring may be designed with a thickness of either 15 mm or 20 mm, depending on the specific design requirements. To define the material, select the filled region, then choose Wood Finish from the Type Properties dialog. This assigns the appropriate hatch pattern or graphic override to represent plywood in section views. Next, with the filled region selected, click Visibility Settings. Choose the detail levels, coarse, medium, or fine, where the component should appear. This controls its visibility in drawings. To manage graphic hierarchy, use the Draw Order tools on the ribbon to organize how lines and filled regions layer within the view. This is especially helpful when your component includes overlapping elements. Finally, save the family file and load it into your project. A line-based detail component can also be stored in an external content library and reused across multiple projects, just like any other loadable family in Revit. If necessary, the family may be edited. You can use line-based detail components as a flexible alternative to traditional repeating details when annotating your models. This method allows you to place a single component and repeat it over a specified distance, defined by just 2 clicks. First, once again, create a new family using the metric detail item line-based template. In this example, we're creating a flooring detail. So we'll begin by loading the wood floor detail family that we previously created. You can do this by opening the previously designed wood floor detail component family and loading it into the new line-based family. Alternatively, in the new line-based detail family, click Detail Component from the Create tab. From there, click Load Family and load the wood floor detail component. To use this tool, you must first save the loadable family, in this case the wood floor detail family. The Load Family tool is an effective way to find and load content into a model. However, be careful not to confuse Load Family with Load into Project. Once the component is in place, use the Array tool to duplicate it. When creating an array, specify the distance between the first and second elements. Use the Move to Second option. All subsequent elements will use the same spacing. By default, Revit creates an initial array with a count of 2. Select the array, then convert the array count into a label using the Options bar. This will open a new window for parameter properties. In the Parameter Data section, give the label a name. And set it as an instance parameter. This allows the number of elements to adjust dynamically based on the placement length in the project. Click OK to close the window. Next, open the Family Types dialog. Use this dialog to organize, create, and modify family type parameters. For our new parameter, apply a formula that divides the length parameter by the actual length of the wood plank detail. This formula automatically calculates the appropriate array value so the planks evenly fill the distance between the 2 points selected during placement. It is very important to avoid grammar and syntax mistakes when writing formulas for parameters in Revit. Revit is strict about formula structure, and even a small error can cause the formula to fail or produce incorrect results. A minor mistake can render the entire formula invalid. In such cases, Revit will either display a warning or prevent the formula from being saved. Before loading the new line-based detail component into the project, make sure to check it in the Family Editor first. Thank you for watching. If you found this Revit tutorial helpful, don't forget to like and share it with your colleagues or peers in the AEC industry. Make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly content. Every week, we dive into powerful tools, techniques, and workflows to help you get the most out of Autodesk Revit, one of the leading platforms in building information modeling for architecture and infrastructure. Have questions or ideas for future tutorials? Drop them in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for being a valued part of the BIM and AI in Practice community.